AOE spooky dump that brought Bitcoin stocks and basically everything except the VIX crumbling to their knees yesterday. Bitcoin as well as stocks are having an teensy-weensy tiny bounce right now. But is this bounce a recovery move, signaling the bottom is in and prices are about to erupt harder than something that erupts extremely big? Or is this a dead cat bounce before we plummet into the depths of oblivion to work service jobs for minimum wage for the rest of our Moonboy lives? After an extremely large, massive wick yesterday and a little bit of greenage today for Bitcoin in the stock market, is this truly going to signal that the market has bottomed as we enter the biggest bull run of all time? Or in fact, are we about to get massively dumped on? So if you understand, no matter what happens, it's going to be big. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, get signed up to BINGX below if you're my Bitcoin or altcoins. Claim 500 free pulse for a limited time right now on BINGX if you're already registered or if you want to register below. Without any further ado, let's absolutely dump on it. So over the last 24 hours, Bitcoin has absolutely suffered some pumping, some dumping, and not really much sideways actually. We've actually seen a significant drawdown. If we take a look at the Japanese stock market as well, having a little itsy bitsy bounce. We do see that the dollar is gaining a little bit on the yen, but basically the big question everyone is asking themselves right now, is this the beginning of a much worse problem? Because if it is, this is quite literally the beginning. Or is it another fake out, another obvious issue in these markets that fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side of the line you stand on, may or may not, it may not be a big deal. Meaning a lot of people are thinking that this could be the trigger, the catalyst to really bring the markets crumbling. Just like about a year ago, back at the beginning of 2023 with the regional banking crisis, this is another factor, right? I mean, overall, I think it's fair to say the economy globally, the way monetary policy is globally, is not done very well. There are a lot of flaws and there are a lot of things that could snap like that, plummeting us, just like we saw Friday afternoon and yesterday, right? With everyone on the planet has heard of the Japanese carry trade at this point, but things like that. Basically, the big question now is the carry trade going to have worse ripple effects and bring the economy down more, or is it done? And another question is, are there similar things that are not the Japanese carry trade that are equally, or if not more, potentially even more disastrous for the market that have not happened yet, that have not triggered yet, that have not been broken yet, that, you know, people might be blindsided by? As I said yesterday, it seems like a lot of people, including potentially even Nancy Pelosi, were blindsided a little bit by this move with the Bank of Japan raising their rates basically from zero, which then prompted Japanese investors to basically close out their positions. So before we jump into the charts, I want to talk about a few things. We see that Morgan Stanley's 15,000 wealth advisors will start pitching clients to buy Bitcoin ETFs by BlackRock and Fidelity starting tomorrow. Okay, another potential huge surge of interest. Obviously, now we are about 6 months, a little over 6 months out from when these Bitcoin ETFs launched. Now is kind of that time where people have been saying from the beginning, this is when potentially the biggest money, the largest amount of these funds can start coming in and kind of really start pitching to their clients. We have over 6 months of kind of history now for these Bitcoin ETFs. They're not brand new, so they have some history to them. It makes it easier to pitch. We also see very interesting, easy to understand, and in my opinion, the most brain dead obvious chart: Bitcoin, gold, and fiat. Fiat being the absolute worst option for investing and for keeping your money, storing your money. We see that the VIX pivot that Bitcoin trade, last time the VIX was this high, Bitcoin went from 3,000 to 20,000 US dollars. This goes back years. And historically, as you can see, the last time the VIX was this high, Bitcoin did go on a major rally. We see Bitcoin is in extreme fear right now. The extreme fear phase of the fear and greed index at a score of about 17 out of 100. In the past 5 years, there are 3 times where it's been this fearful. 2019's bottom, 2020's bottom, and 2022's bottom. I like to surround myself with people that, in my opinion, have at least like a base level. And I'm being a little modest. I think that they're pretty intelligent people. I think they're pretty good investors. I heard from some of them yesterday basically saying buying opportunity, right? The people that I still surround myself with, the only messages I was getting yesterday were, this is a buying opportunity. We also see that, I think this is a good reminder. Every government in the world would have to successfully coordinate simultaneously to shut down the internet everywhere and keep it off forever for Bitcoin to be stopped. So pretty good. Again, we see the fear and greed index, just a better picture you can see. It's extreme fear right now. Current price is in the mid 50,000s. Ironically as well, right? We see Wall Street, you lose 30% of your net worth, people start panicking. But in crypto, it happens all the time. It's just, again, you have to reframe how you view these type of things. Yesterday it was cool to watch. Like, it was pretty dumpy. I lost so much value in my my portfolio dropped in fiat value by so much. And I looked at it a few times, right? I wasn't like hiding because I was scared to look at it. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel much. Why? Because I'm not selling my position yesterday. I wasn't selling my position yesterday. As I actually tweeted, I don't have much money that I can buy more crypto with left. But what I did, I put it into crypto, right? Immediately, everything that I have basically goes into crypto. Starting tomorrow, the Treasury will begin buying back up to $46 billion worth of outstanding government securities by the end of October, primarily to provide liquidity support. Printers slowly, again, coming back on, the money printers. Yeah, basically, this is how it feels. You have Bitcoin crashing and you have an empty bank account. It does not feel great. We see that, if Japan causes the next financial crisis, money printing bailouts, interest rate cuts, inflationary fiat collapse, and the ultimate final victory of Bitcoin, Pierre Richard on Twitter, on X, says that then we'll know why Satoshi Nakamoto chose a Japanese pseudonym. It's kind of crazy. Japan is such an interesting place. Japan is like not even 1% of the world in terms of like land mass, but it accounts for like a massive amount of like earthquakes, geological activity. It has the biggest city in the world, quite literally by population. Tokyo is the biggest city in the world. It is incredibly influential. It's a tiny little island. I've been there. It's awesome, right? It's very safe, very clean. But it is kind of crazy how influential and how much they've managed to stand out in terms of technology and stuff, despite their history, despite everything. And it is crazy. The creator of Bitcoin, whether it's a person, multiple people, whatever it is, the pseudonym is Satoshi Nakamoto, which is a Japanese name. We also see that Bitcoin to $62,000 is confirmed, according to Ash Crypto, because Kramer is bearish right now, saying that you can't expect a quick bounce back. And immediately we are having a little bounce. I want to talk about the charts in a second because I have a lot to say about that. But we also see Matthew Hyland pointing out that the daily close of Bitcoin yesterday was, again, we'll take a look at this in a second, but very big wick, but we closed right in the same region we have before, even though we did put in a macro lower low compared to the dump a couple weeks ago. We also see this, and this is something I was going to talk about in the charts as well. We have Bitcoin 2020 versus now, very reminiscent of the crash we got in March 2020, basically a pattern of a descending broadening wedge. And I'll look at that in a sec. So that's extremely big. We also see Bitcoin down 32% from its latest top. We've seen that many, many times. Specifically, I remember pointing it back in the last bull cycle and also in 2017, 2018. 30% pullbacks are absolutely normal. Yesterday's pullback, even though it was kind of, I'll be honest, it wasn't that scary. I don't know. Were people really panicking? I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, and I just don't spend a lot of time reading people's emotions on Twitter as much lately. Because, I don't know, I'm kind of bored with it. But were people panicking yesterday? Probably. I'll have to check. But really, the price of Bitcoin, we look at a few charts here. Yeah, we see the descending broadening wedge. We see that there's a clear upper level of resistance. Right at about 70,000. It's slightly descending, but it's basically pretty horizontal at 70,000. We also see that the descending level is very clear now. Whereas before, actually, I guess that wouldn't have lined up. So yeah, this dump literally bounced exactly at about 49 or 50,000. So that's pretty big. Something I want to highlight as well is that if we look at the weekly chart for Bitcoin, we have, and I've had these on for a long time. If you go back and watch these videos, I keep the VRVP on the weekly chart for Bitcoin. I've had it on for multiple years. All it shows is kind of where the most accumulated volume is. And basically, we should expect strong bounces and strong support. The more that this line, or the more that this indicator is showing that it's like buffed out. Basically meaning if we would ever come back to 16K again, which I personally don't think we will, but hey, anything could happen, right? We could all explode in 5 minutes from now. I think that's extremely unlikely. But look at all the support down here. Basically, all this is to do is to illustrate kind of where the biggest chunks of support are. And you see 57,000 exactly where we are sitting right underneath right now is that support we just lost. But where was the next one? Right at about 47,000, which we almost came down to it. You can see it's kind of big and chunky, this whole area. So even from about 52 to 45,000, there's a decent amount of support. It just gets massive at about 47 to 48,000. Again, massive at about 43, 42,000, massive at about 38,000. So really a lot of support below us. We bounced right at this 100-week moving average. Or sorry, this 50-week moving average. The 50-week moving average being right at about 50,000 US dollars. The 100-week is all the way down at about 38,000. So realistically, in terms of a breakdown, if you really want to get bearish, in my opinion, we have not gotten to a place where that's really valid yet. What would we have to do to get bearish? Well, clearly we'd have to break lower than we've already gone. Getting down to the 100-week moving average, I'll be honest, that's pretty bearish, because that's a very important place that we haven't visited since blasting above it back in October 2023. So not quite, but almost a year ago was the last time we were really there. And it's just not a really good, it's not a great signal. But on the short-term charts for Bitcoin, you look at the daily chart, something like that, you can see obviously short-term, very big dumpiness, MACD, RSI showing that as well. RSI is pretty reset though. Again, I personally think that we could see a, I mean, we're still primed. The more we get dumped on, I think the pumpier that this market will become when it gets pumpy. The longer that we get pumped on, the longer we get dumped on, the longer price is held down, the longer and higher I believe Bitcoin can go up. So as I've said for months, I'm not really concerned about it. I think that the longer we go through this pain before true exhilaration, let's say a lot of euphoria and a lot of excitement comes into this market, then that'll just give us more fuel to go longer and longer. So, if we would have started breaking out back in May after, we set a new all-time high, and then let's say like 2 months later, we immediately went a new all-time high, that would have been crazy. It would have been exciting. But realistically, on a long-term chart, we probably couldn't even have gone as high or as long as we might be able to now. Because again, it's very simple. This is like, I don't know why I'm over explaining it. I think everyone probably understands that. But we're below all the short-term daily moving averages. The stock market obviously is not looking amazing. It's having a little bit of a bounce. This is the daily chart, very clear resistance, probably around 5,300. It's where we spent a couple of months getting rejected right around that range and trying to get above it. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's way too early to kind of answer the question at the beginning of the video. I think it's way too early to get extremely bullish short-term, because we have to see, one, literally this massive collapse happened yesterday, so we want to give it at least a few days to see if it'll continue to bring the markets down. So far, we're having a little bit of a bounce, but it's not a strong enough bounce to where I think, okay, it's definitely the bottom, right? I'm not saying the bottom's in just yet in the short term. We have to wait. We need more confirmations. Like I just said, we want to see the stock market get back above 5,300 and not immediately get rejected there. That'll be a good indication. With Bitcoin as well, getting back above 57,000 is a pretty big level. That'll put us back above some of that hump, some of that volume that we need. And realistically, yeah, you look at the daily chart for Bitcoin. If this is kind of like the center of the last trading of the last couple of months, going all the way back to end of February, beginning of March, yeah, I mean, reclaiming 60, in my opinion, is pretty important. At the minimum, in the short term, now after this dump, if Bitcoin's going to go up, we need to at least claim 60 to feel confident speculating short term. But again, I think it's kind of even silly just focusing on Bitcoin right now, because we have to watch the stock market. We have to watch what's happening in Japan, in their stock market. And overall, yeah, there's way too many factors to just look at Bitcoin. That's why I'm talking about everything else. I think it will be very interesting. We're supposed to have our first rate cut of the entire cycle, of this entire cycle we've seen from the Fed. We're supposed to have it next month. And I think they're going to stick to that. Jeremy Siegel, many people were talking about yesterday, he called for like 75 basis point cut this month. I think that's a little crazy. That would only be realistic or necessary, I think, if this market got a lot worse. And I'm just going to be honest, it's not bad enough at all yet to really panic. Not fun if you're in a long position and if you really want to see this go up to watch this. But overall, this is still par for the course for Bitcoin. This is quite literally normal movement. It is interesting, more so because it's an outside factor, being Japan and their specific carry trade with borrowing at a near zero interest rate, and now the rates are raised, so they had to kind of unwind that. But aside from that, if that doesn't amount to be a much bigger problem, then, as I said at the beginning of the video, either we're good and we're going up, or there will be another black swan, unrelated probably, or somewhat distantly related from the Japanese carry trade, from somewhere else in the world, that could have a big impact. But again, I haven't seen anybody talk about anything specific. Before the last few days, nobody was talking about this yen carry trade, or very, very few people, where it might have been like less than 1% of people. Now it's like 100% of people talking about it. Same thing now. What is there something else happening behind the scenes that maybe like 1% of people are talking about, and soon in a week or a month or 6 months from now, everyone will be talking about? If there is, feel free to leave it in the comments. Maybe we can discuss that. Actually, that's a good idea. Is there something that you think will blow up the economy? And get sent up to Femex below and claim your free 500 pulse. Roughly, as of right now, I believe it's worth about $500 if you just sign up with the link below and click claim. Without further ado.